Hey everyone, my name is Perry, and welcome back to the Cassette Phase. So, happy Thursday, chilly Thursday. Like we actually broke some records on the low temps this morning, I think. But hey, it's a sunny day, and it's a great day here in the den. Speaking of the den, I'm finally ready to give you all an updated tour. But before I do that, I want to just quickly share some additional context and some backstory. So for those of you who have been around since I started the channel or shortly thereafter, you already know kind of what I was going for in this room, the look and the feel that I was trying to achieve. You also know that it has housed a lot of my vintage and retro toys, some vintage pop culture items, all of my various collections. And if you are new around here, don't worry, I'm going to try to edit in some before and after footage all throughout this video. Well, I recently shared on a video where I was just walking around my neighborhood talking about nostalgia and sharing some of my random thoughts about the den here. I mentioned then that I was ready for a change. And while I don't think that this room has ever been cluttered, or what I would consider to be cluttered, it's always been fairly organized in my opinion. I did start to feel like the walls were closing in on me just a little bit, if you know what I'm talking about. So, I'd be going to grab a book and knocking over an action figure, or I'd be trying to get whatever movie I wanted to watch next, and I'd be knocking over a soda can, and especially when I was having to dust in here, which was more frequently than I would like, honestly. And it got me to thinking, what is it that I truly want out of this room? We know that it serves as my home office, and my work arrangement is fully remote, so I spend a lot of time in here. And for that reason, comfort is going to remain one of the most important aspects of the den here. It just has to. I mean, that's why there's a couch in here, and that's why there are 3 different television setups, which you'll see here in a few minutes. And that's also kind of why I went ahead and painted the whole room what I consider to be a very warm and relaxing color. But the nostalgic feelings, the nostalgic vibes, those create a sense of comfort for me personally. And I'm sure they do for many of you as well. So I needed to determine and figure out which items in here were absolutely necessary to help give me those types of feelings. And throughout this process, what I discovered was some of the toys and some of the pop culture items, they weren't as vital as maybe they once were. But instead, it's things like books and VHS tapes and DVDs and those types of things. Things that tell a story and create an experience, I guess. Those are more crucial to me at this point. So did I sell off the whole collection? No, of course not. But I did streamline things quite a bit, which you'll see. Now, of course, there were some really fun items that I just couldn't part with. But that doesn't mean that those items have to be out on a bookshelf at all times on display for me to see at any given moment. At this point in my life, I'm perfectly okay going into the VHS closet, opening up a storage bin and grabbing out a couple of toys and bringing them here to the ottoman to share with you guys in a video, and then putting them back. The VHS closet has become a little bit of a catch-all for a lot of those fun toys and pop culture items that I do want to see frequently. So the feel of the VHS closet has changed a little bit too. And I've also given a few things to my son, so I've gotten to see those items in an entirely different way every time I'm in his room playing Nerf basketball or playing with his action figures. So that's been really cool. Also, a lot of those really fun, flashy items, they've made their way out to the garage. And for that reason, and I'm going to show a couple little clips here today, but I think the garage is going to need its own full tour video and hangout video once the weather warms up. So that explains some of the streamlining and some of the decluttering. I've just reached a point where a little added simplicity in here will really do me some good. And I know that some of you will watch this and think that you liked the den better the old way, and I'm perfectly fine with that. But I do hope that you still find this to be a fun place to hang out and relax by way of our little YouTube community here. Now, the inspiration for the look and feel of the room actually comes from more of like a 70s or early 80s aesthetic, as opposed to a late 80s, early 90s type aesthetic. I'm going to try to put some pictures in here that kind of show what the inspiration was for the room here. And some of you have even mentioned that you're picking up on some vibes from the Brady Bunch house, which is absolutely true. Especially Mr. Brady's den. Total inspiration for the kind of vibe that I'm going for in here. A lot of orange and browns and tans, just warm, nostalgic vibes all around. I've also added some more faux plants, which I like. And I've really simplified a lot of the items that are hanging on the walls. And this is all in an effort to hopefully create the atmosphere of an actual room that you would have walked into back in that era. Now, of course, there are some modern conveniences and necessities in here, being that it is my work from home office. But I think the intro has been plenty long at this point, so let's go ahead and get started with the tour. And of course, the newly instated cassette of the day. If you're new to the cassette phase, this is where we hang out and talk about all things nostalgic. So be sure to subscribe if you like what you see today. But if you're ready to visit the Den 2.0, come hang out. Okay, but before we get started with the tour, we have to do our quick second installment here of the cassette of the day. So the tape that I pulled for today's video is one of my favorite John Hughes flicks, Uncle Buck. It's really cold today, and for whatever reason, I like to watch this movie in the fall and the winter time. It just makes me think of that particular time of the year, and this is one of John Candy's best. You got Macaulay Culkin in here. Lots of memorable, quotable lines and really funny scenes in this. I know a lot of people don't think it's John Hughes' best work, but it's definitely up there for me, and it's definitely one of the ones that I watch really, really frequently of his stuff. So I figured this would be a good pick for our second ever cassette of the day, because it really is one of my most watched movies. For some reason, it just never gets old. So anyone else a fan of Uncle Buck? Okay everyone, I gave you the quick 360 tour. Let's go through it in a little bit more detail. Welcome back to the den. As you first walk in, still have the filing cabinet with the faux wood paneling on the side. That little Sony Watchman, I use that to keep the door open because it tends to glide shut on its own. I think we gave it too much WD-40 or something, but. All right, so we walk in and there's the familiar backdrop from the channel, the comfortable plaid couch, still with Alf represented, and my pound puppy from childhood. Couldn't put those guys away. Vintage fan on top, which still works. Helps in the Texas summertime. Got my boombox and a vintage Mountain Dew diner clock. Not going to spend too much time on the filing cabinet, but it does serve a purpose. We've got comic books in the first two drawers, all the way to the back. And then in the bottom two drawers, we've got some DVD sets, which I'll show you more here in a moment. I've moved a lot of these out to the actual shelves in the room, but the overflow is still here. DVD sets for TV shows and for cartoons. Works well for my purposes. So I used to have a ton of stuff on this wall. And as you can see now, it's a little sparse. And that's kind of what I was going for. These ducks, these framed, what is that, needlepoint, I think? These ducks, they hung in my grandparents' house in Arkansas, and I could just remember it from the earliest memories that I ever have of their houses. That thing was always hanging in the living room, so happy to have it. It used to hang out in our hallway here at the house, but I had to move it to the den. I found both of these collage frames at an estate sale, still in the wrapping. And so I took some family photos, tried to put a little bit of an aged effect on the pictures when I went and had them printed, and added them there because I feel like an 80s living room usually had some family photos like that somewhere nearby, whether it was in a hallway, above the couch like I have here, but just somewhere. So I have moved the modern smart TV to this corner. This is where the CRT used to be. And it just wasn't getting enough love. And I'll show you, I basically just switched these two. And it's given me easier access to play my Sega Genesis games, which are hooked up on the CRT. Now this does still get a lot of use. As you can see, I've got the Super Nintendo Classic hooked up there. Got the Switch hooked up there as well. And then my Sega cart still remains. With some new games though. Even since the last time I updated you guys. I'm really excited to start doing some reaction videos to the first time playing a lot of those Genesis games. So, this shelf here, kind of similar. It has fewer toys on it now. Still have my vintage Coca-Cola diner clock up there. Along with just some items and some books. Stuff that just fits the look I was going for. vintage McNugget buddies notwithstanding. And then we move over to my desk where I do my work. Now on this screen, I always have that Simpsons wallpaper, and you can't see it right now because I've got the computer locked, but this one, the wallpaper rotates through about 300 or 400 pictures, all of them, nostalgic wallpapers. So maybe one day I'll take you guys through those and show you what those look like. Little note to myself here, which I think is important. Remember to, if you want to feel good, think about your sleep, your breathing, enjoying life, reading, relaxing, walking, music, lots of water. Don't forget to move. And if you feel good, maybe you'll look good. That's my little flow chart that I look at each day to kind of keep me going. Probably more information than you guys care about at this point, but I got some vintage office supplies here. Gotta love a wood grain stapler and a wood grain tape dispenser. I've really decluttered the desk a lot. I no longer had a use for the office phone. That's all done through the computer now, so that opened up some space for this plant. And my vintage banker's lamp. And a cool little Pac-Man mug to hold the pens. Moving on here. And being right by this window like this, when the weather's nice, it's great. I can open up that window and a breeze comes in and it's just so nice. Audio cassettes still here, mounted on the wall. Collection continues to grow whenever I find something that I like. I kept the Chicago Cubs pennant, whereas I removed some of the others. I don't know. They're not my favorite team, but they're one of my favorite teams. But something about that logo, it's just so nostalgic. I feel like that very pennant has shown up in the various houses and apartments of sitcoms and movies and all kinds of places. If you look around, you'll see that a lot. My little shelf system boombox. This one sounds better, so I listen to this one way more frequently for CDs and tapes. Where My Pet Monster used to sit, now sits this very 80s palm tree plant, which I actually love. And My Pet Monster is still here in the room. I'll show you where here in a moment. But now the shelves are where you'll really see some differences, and I'm going to do my best to remember to go back and put in some before and after if I can. But I just feel like it's less cluttered. We've still got little pops of, there's an Alf lunchbox and a Super Mario Brothers 3 figure up there, but it's mostly, at this point, books, games, movies. Still got a Nerfle over there next to a picture of my son fishing. And still got, a couple of Simpsons figures next to the Simpsons DVDs and VHS tapes. And I think it was Eli, and I apologize that I didn't look ahead of time. I should have. I'm pretty sure it was Eli that was in the comments section that gave me the great suggestion. And if it wasn't, I apologize. I'll go back and correct this later if this is inaccurate. But he mentioned that you can hide, if you don't want toys jumping out at you and screaming at you in your face, but you want little simple reminders of their fun and their simplicity, just pop them in little spots here and there. And then they're kind of like a little surprise when you see them. And I really liked that idea. And I'm going to do that throughout other parts of the house as well. A lot of my favorite DVDs now have a spot on the shelf, along with this Hair Bear Bunch mug that I absolutely love. Sorry, the lighting's not so great right there, but there you go, you can see it. Yeah, a lot of the DVDs, some of the clamshell VHS tapes are now on that shelf. Bart Simpson still has a place, kind of tucked away. Paperbacks. A few figures mixed in. Some stuff kind of hiding up top. See Michelangelo there and Triceraton. My vase of vintage action figures. I did that a couple of years ago and just, you know, nothing valuable, incomplete figures without their accessories. I kind of positioned them into a vase. I think it looks kind of cool. More books, more frames, the VHS tapes. I say the VHS tapes, the most common ones that the ones I like to watch the most frequently. I guess kind of my favorites. They live on that shelf. Family photos, hardbacks. Still got a NECA Michelangelo figure there. One of my favorite action figures ever, so he stays out on the shelf for the time being. A few tapes, a few books. Let's keep going and I'll come back to the CRT here in a second. Got an old phone there next to my Pink Panthers and Sons metal lunchbox. More paperbacks. I just love paperbacks from that era, from, you know, 80s, early 90s. Horror, sci-fi, fantasy, anything I can get my hands on. Much fewer items up top, but still just some pops of nostalgia, you know? You got a My Pet Monster Funko Pop hanging out in there. The Bart and Lisa Simpson, still there. My NFL pencils, prized possession for sure. Books, family photos. Okay, so I pulled out some of the DVDs from the cabinet and put them here. Just some of my favorites. Some of my favorite seasons, you know. Been on a big Brady Bunch and Laverne and Shirley kick lately. I've got a basket of some PVC figures there. I'll show you where the rest of them are here in a minute. Books, comics, vintage pencil sharpener, vintage bike reflector from a cereal box, photo album, more books, Moss Man from He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. All right, let's go ahead and zoom out a little bit here and look at this. The credenza with the smart TV used to be there. But I consider this to be the prime TV spot in the room. Let me sit on the couch here. You know, I've got my ottoman here. I do have a good TV there too as well. We'll get to that. But this now I can do VHS movies, DVD movies, and maybe most important of all, I can play the Sega Genesis games. And I've got some loose ones here. You saw some of the boxed ones over in the cart. But in order to make that happen in a neat and organized fashion, again, probably more detail than you guys want, but I've got the Blu-ray / DVD player down here on the floor, and then I've got an AV switch box next to it, so I can change between Sega Genesis, DVD, anything else I want to hook up. Bunch of video game controllers and supplies in that vintage Coca-Cola crate. Yeah, I really like the way that turned out. Let's keep going. You guys bored yet? So over in this section, which is kind of an awkward section because it's not big enough for me to put another section of bookshelf. And if I were to try to find one that fit there, I wouldn't be able to open the closet door, unfortunately. So it's kind of just an awkward space. Always has been. I've got my little magazine rack down here. As you can see, these walls have all been painted now. And then about 10 videos back, I did a project where I framed these vintage ALF portfolio folders, school folders. Very pop culture, I know, but I just like them so much, and I think that they're great here in this corner. Still got the vintage Fraggle Rock calendar hanging on the VHS closet. And before we go in there, let's go ahead and finish out the rest of the room here. So from this side of the room, the view is like this. My glorious console TV that, again, I'm using sparingly because I don't want it to burn out. I'm just so happy to have it. I did a whole video on it, if you want to go back and check that out. But again, over here we've got DVD, we've got VCR, we've got a classic old remote control, a vintage clock, anniversary clock, I believe. And we've got the NES set up here. We've got ALF TV guide and an Arkansas Razorbacks ashtray. I love ashtrays when I can find them. There's another one right here that's from a furniture store. Just cool, love it. Yeah, that basket next to the TV's got some of my crossword puzzle books and you know, word finds, things that I like to do when I start to get a little stressed out. And then I've got a vintage brass floor lamp. This Coca-Cola bar mirror hung in my grandparents' house in their kitchen, their little dining room area, like their little eating nook. And then the one toy line that I'm still actively collecting, the World of Springfield Simpsons figures. I just love these things. You know, they're solid, they're sturdy, they've got great colors, they've got great expressions. And these considered vintage at this point. A lot of these are from the early 2000s, so some of these figures are 20 years old. That's wild to me that we could even be considering these vintage at this point. Yeah, I am almost done. I did a rewatch of the first 10 seasons of The Simpsons. And I'm gonna do a video where I talk about it. I've got just the last bit of season 10 to finish up. Obviously a big fan. Quality definitely dips the further you get into some of those seasons, but I'll talk about that in another video. So that's the room, guys. Like I said, it's not too much of a drastic change. I think a lot of the same character and the feeling of the room is still there. Just a little less cluttered, you know? Easier to dust. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look in the VHS closet. Now, if you're new to the channel, I am the cassette phase after all, so I've got quite a few cassettes here in the room. And I store most of the VHS tapes in this closet here. I converted it to VHS storage about a couple years ago, I'd say. Now it also has to store other things. So it's a little bit busy and cluttered in there, but it's a really fun place. I'm happy every time I walk in there. You know, I've got some stuff on the walls. Let's just show you. Okay, so still fairly organized. I can go in, I can step all the way in and look all around. We'll get to the movies in a minute, but let's just do... These are all overflow VHS. These are all overflow DVD. Here is a bin full of fun toys, which I'm I'm gonna get that out for a video and we'll go through it. There's a lot of the stuff that used to be on the shelves is now in that tub. My Pet Monster and Fievel still have a home. We've got a vintage McDonald's Happy Meal beach ball. And then over here on the wall, just some fun like posters and items. You know, a Frisbee from McDonald's, that original Nintendo poster that used to come with the games. Here we've got a part of a Yo Yogi fruit snacks box. You know, a still shot from one of my all-time favorite movies, The Wizard. We've got an ad for the Simpsons arcade game, Konami. Talk about random things that you get in frame. These are the stickers that used to come in Highlights magazines. Remember those? I had these all over my dresser as a kid. So when I found a sheet of these, as weird as it may sound, I framed them and now they're in here. We've got a vintage California Raisins poster. Got that framed. This clown thing hung in my bedroom when I was a really little kid. And looking back at it now, like that was probably kind of scary as a 4-year-old. But yeah, shout out to my mom for giving that to me because I saw it again and it immediately took me back. I remember what it looked like hanging on my wall, so I'm glad that it's in here. One of my favorite pictures of Alf and Lynn. A My Pet Monster animation cell from the cartoon. We've got that rad Alf 8-bit zombie hologram sticker. And then we've got just some random stuff. We've got the Super Mario Brothers 2 instruction booklet, for whatever reason, framed on the wall. Why not, right? All right, so let's take you through the movies. And I do a full video each time I reorganize this. So I'm gonna go kind of quickly today, but let's see. Let's just start at the top. Sports and concert footage mostly on that top row. Overflow stuff that I haven't filed yet stacked up there at the top next to my Happy Meal boxes, which are now here, along with a Wuzzles thermos. Cartoons are on this next row. Lots of fun stuff there. And then this next row down is the one that I have the most space on. So it also is now a display spot for some of my soda cans and some of my favorite vintage toys and figures. I think it looks kind of cool. I have to move something every time I want to grab one of these tapes, but it's worth it to me to have this stuff out on display. And I've done entire videos on vintage soda cans. If you're interested in, you know, one man's trash is another man's treasure, you can go back and watch those. I show a lot of these cans in very close detail, along with commercials and things that go with them. And then we've just got movies, you know, nothing rare, nothing valuable, just movies that I like to watch. With Cubert hanging in front of them and some random toys sitting on top. And there we go. The VHS closet. And like I said, we'll go into some of this stuff in more detail in future videos. I'll get some toys out. We'll go through some of the vintage bed linens that I've got in here. All kinds of fun stuff to do that will give us content for plenty of time going forward. But there it is. Hidden away. A fun little room full of nostalgia. Easily accessible from the Den 2.0 here. So hope you guys enjoyed hanging out in here today. I think we'll probably wrap it up. And there we go. And there we are. So I'm kind of hoping that the changes in here weren't quite as drastic as you all were anticipating. But more importantly, I hope that the Den is still a fun, relaxing place for you all to hang out. Be sure to subscribe if you're new around here. But for now, and as always, relax. Enjoy life and be kind. We'll see you in the next one.